Welcome back, everybody. I am very pleased to introduce today two rock stars of FIDO, Abbie Barbir and Ramesh Kesanupalli, the founder of FIDO as well. They're here to talk about accountable identity online. So I'd like to hand it over to Abbie now.
Thank you. Thank you, Christina. Hi, everyone. So today my job is to set up the stage for Ramesh to take over. So I'm going to be quick and fast to the point. So we'll start with an overview of identity. The point that we want to make here is not a lecture or what identity is, but what the conditions and where we're going in identity and why we need ADI and why ADI was born. So if you look at identity, we started with user name, password, relying party. It was centralized. Relationship is one-to-one, password-based, KYC for enrollment, and so forth. The user ended with having multiple accounts, hundreds of accounts with different relying parties. The magical solution was to do federation. And I was involved. I was lucky enough to be involved in that area. So SAML and then OpenID Connect came in. Federation gave us some ease to the user because now you can have a collection of providers working together where the user can log on to that account. And in between, during all of the evolution of identity online, what we had is that part of the movement that is user-centric. The user-centric said, well, the user should own its own data, and then same what we hear today. So the user-centric led to what we are going to later, which is, or going to within decentralized identity, but it was short-lived, okay? The reason for that, the technology was not there for it to happen. We had good intentions, but we failed because we did not have ledgers and the proper networking done. It was not there yet, okay? So why we're going over that? Because the whole evolution goes on top of something called trust. Trust in the relationship, trust in the system, trust between you and who you're dealing with. You could be anonymous, that's not the issue. Private, that's not the issue. But the integrity of the operation requires trust from the provider to you as a user. So far, so where we have been going was the user is the underdog, but the relying party had more of the upper hand. And a lot of this decentralization going, we need to level the playing field. But let's not forget what happened, though, and understand the trust models, because this is what really takes you to the next stage, okay? The trust model is, in federation, the cooperating entities know each other. It's transitive closure. When you go into a federation, relying party A, know B, know C, it may not trust them fully with everything, but the relationship exists. So you may have one-way trust relationship, especially with a single sign-on or not. But these are people that are family and friends. They are not coming from anywhere, just come and join the party and go home the next day. It's predetermined, it's pre-negotiated. So it means there is some agreement that have done in place. There is some governance that happened, okay? The governance ensure the integrity of the whole ecosystem. So, you know, this is what's very important. The user gets some benefits. The user gets single sign-on. You may have, you know, one of those cooperating entities. What will happen? They become the center of trust for that federation, and it becomes the single sign-on, like the center of gravity, right? So still, the user is at disadvantage because the federation decides what happens to the user data, what gets exchanged. The user is at disadvantage. We did not solve the key major problems with the user. It's my data, it's me. So we're still there. So why we're talking about that? Because irrespective of what technology you enable, the end of the story is who trusts who and what's enabling the trust. And this is what's very important. Authentication is just one step in that ecosystem because authentication, it is me that I onboarded you. So that authentication is part of the trust environment. And, you know, we need to keep that in mind. Federation, including SAML and OpenID, bidirectional trust is there. People know each other. Now the story changes in decentralization. With decentralization, the trust model is not the same. The issuer issue a credential. The verifier verifies the credential. The issuer may not know the verifier or trust the verifier. The verifier can validate that something that issued with the issuer, but does not mean the issuer is authorized to issue that credential. So, the governance is missing. The trust is not the same. It's skewed. So now to do identity online and enable what we are enabling today, we need to change what we're doing. We need to start adapting the technology that we have and start using it in a way that makes sense. And the story does not end there. The foundation of decentralization is based on PKI. So today, there is a ledger, there is a wallet, your identity is bootstrapped into a ledger through a PKI. PKI is just PKI. You got a website, every website that even the fisher that want to scam you, they have a certificate. Does not mean anything. PKI means it's valid signature. Does not mean it's a legal entity doing the business. So PKI as a foundation of trust, it's only to prove the connection, but does not mean it proves the identity. It's missing, okay? Other part of the stuff that we do, it's a verifiable credential. Verifiable credentials are not interoperable irrespective of all the good work that has been trying to do. Because the first thing is, as an issuer of a verifiable credential, is the credential issued in the context of it should be issued? Is it about the same person or not? How can we validate the truth of the credential? We don't have all of this foundation. What we're missing is a governance system. To automate the process, we need governance. And this is where we are heading. This is why ADI was born, because these are the weak points that are missing in the system. So again, PKI as the center of trust is not good enough. We go back to the model in here, the verifier and the issuer. It's not one way or transitive. It's network effect. Okay, so now what does this mean? To really have accountability, we need to automate. How we automate? We had some issues where the user is the center of the whole automation. The self-sovereign movement is a great movement. It created a great stack of protocols. But also, it required the user to be involved. The user being involved is not for everybody, because not everyone is technical. What we really need to do is abstraction. When you go drive a car, you just turn the car on and you drive. You don't really need to know how the engine works, right? If every one of us needed to figure out how the car engine works before we drive, we will not need to build too many roads, because it's there. You just drive, right? Same with the pilot. The pilot operates the plane. They have some understanding of how the plane works, but they don't need to know all the details. They need to know how to react, because it's a process, okay? And this is what we need to do to bootstrap identity. Digital identity bootstrapping is hard. It's not easy, but with the proper framework and governance, you will do and bring back the trust, okay? And this is why ADI was born, okay? So Ramesh, it's all yours.
Thanks, Abbie. Thank you, Abbie. So it's nice to be back. I'm Ramesh Kesanupalli. So we introduced ADI Association last year during last FIDO conference. So I don't want to bore you guys with a lot of those details about what ADI is again. Probably I'll give a quick refresh. Since we spoke last year about where we were, now what's the current status? We actually have published the specification last September, and we also did, while we were developing, just like what we did for FIDO, when FIDO's specification was being developed, the company that I founded, Knock Knock Labs, actually did the first implementation. Similarly here, we have a company called Digital Trust. As we are developing the specification, Digital Trust actually implemented it and showed how things work. And thanks to Abbie and the rest of the team, we did a pilot last November. After that, there is a commercial implementation that's available already from Digital Trust Networks based on ADI specification 1.0. We did, and Hitachi did a pilot back in April. We do have now an ADI interchange. I'll briefly explain about at a high level what ADI interchange is. And we just started a specification 2.0 work, so we really would like people to come and join us. And we are planning to launch a ADI Korea interchange in November. And we're also looking into a Japanese ADI interchange by end of this year. So who are the current board members of ADA Association? CVS Health, obviously Digital Asset, Digital Trust, Early Warning, these are the current board members, and we also have a lot of other members who are part of ADA Association. So to take at an abstract layer what in ADI, so we have cyber attacks that are ramping up pretty heavily, as you guys know, and now we also have a new problem called disinformation and misinformation, which is actually causing societal damage. A regular digital fraud, maybe you will recover in less than half an hour, or if it is a financial fraud, you probably get your money back from the bank. But disinformation, fake information is actually causing societal damage, which actually is a lot more impactful where we are than a normal identity fraud. So we actually, when ADA specification, we did not reinvent anything necessarily. We have taken a look at the concepts of SSI. We took the concepts of what the work that Verifiable Crimes is doing and Decentralized Identity Foundation is putting it out. We actually took whatever is good from every one of them. So our approach is common sense approach. How do we do that? How do we do that? We want to make things simpler. FIDO does a good job of actually authenticating an account. But how do you make sure there is a rightful owner of the account is the one user who is actually operating? There has to be a human binding to an account. That's where we actually try to focus on. So if we see in a given region, each one of us are uniquely defined. Within the United States, I'm uniquely defined with my first name, last name, date of birth, and social security number. If I go to India, I have first name, last name, date of birth, and Aadhaar identity as my uniquely identified. There may be 5 different Ramesh's Kesanupalli in Silicon Valley. Maybe 2 of them have the same birthday. But we too will have 2 different social security numbers. So the way that we do is we actually create a decentralized identity and then bind it with a unique hash that is created specifically for a person that cannot be created for anybody else but just for that person. So who are the people today that know about me? The people who know who has my first name, last name, date of birth, and social security number. They are the people where I work. Obviously, Digital Trust knows. They pay me every 2 weeks, so they have that information. Educational institution that I go to, they have that information. I have an account with Wells Fargo Bank and Bank of America. They file, if they get a $2.20 interest, they will report it to federal government. So they have that first name, last name, date of birth, social security number. Every healthcare organization has, and they know uniquely how to identify me. They have that first name, last name, date of birth, social security number. If they don't know, they can't uniquely identify me, I get treated for Abbie's disease, which is not good. So they know exactly how to identify me. Similarly, every government agency knows how to identify me. So what we do is very simple. Any of those guys can actually bootstrap me and bring it to me into the ecosystem. They will take their first name, last name, date of birth, and social security number, uniquely hash it, and the hash gets sent to us, and we look into a directory service and see, has there been a decentralized identity created for this particular hash? If it is not there, then we'll create one, we return it back to enterprise, enterprise will send it back to the user. I'm sorry, I'm speaking very fast because I have a flight to catch and it took 10 minutes out of 20 minutes. So I pass it back to the enterprise which created but that asked for the decentralized identity for the hash, and that entity knows how to reach me. They will send it to me. Once they send it to me, I simply scan that identity, and when they scan it, we do make sure that it's exactly the same person for whom it is created. It is then registered using FIDO2. Once that is done, the service that is sitting in the middle doesn't know anything about the person other than the hash and the decentralized identity that is created for that, and the FIDO registration, the FIDO keys that are registered for that. Other than that, I don't know anything about the user. Once that is created, every one of those agencies can now publish whatever credentials they want to publish. Each one of them will have their own DID. It will be signed by the issuer. Just the metadata link and the DID is what gets sent to the service that is out there. So the service that is sitting here doesn't know anything about the person, but it knows exactly where all his credentials are located geographically anywhere in the world. And That particular identity can only be unlocked by the user because it is FIDO registered. Nobody else can unlock it. As long as the person is behaving well, that system is completely blind, completely privacy protected. Every transaction is a one-time date. We don't know anything about it. There is no tracing involved. Issuer does not know anything about the service provider, but service provider does know about the issuer. The things that we considered when we did this one was, we have to assume, like Abbie was mentioning, there are different kinds of people. We cannot assume that users are going to be technologically savvy and they know how to do all this stuff. Not only that, when we are actually defining a new global infrastructure, let's define an infrastructure where we include the people who are not technologically savvy, who cannot operate a phone. We took the approach of making sure we include everybody. Next thing we made sure that we thought about was enterprises that are existing today, where my trusted data is existing today, they don't need to change any of their existing infrastructure. They don't need to rewrite any of the applications. Anybody who implements ADA interchange can simply give them the software which is going to take the pieces of the information to create a digital address and publish the credential. And we exactly use the formats and standardizations that was done with the DIA Foundation and W3C. So user doesn't need to worry about if he has 3 devices, he has 20 credentials, he doesn't need to worry about repeating the process on all 3 devices 20 times. He just needs to connect to one service. This service, we also published a dash-to-dash communication because we assume that this ADA interchange will be implemented by multiple people. So there is a value settlements thing that we thought about, we included in this one. The core principles of ADA is whoever is implementing ADA service and ADA specification should not be owning anybody's personal data or anybody's personal information. Second thing was we wanted to make sure personal data is sitting within the governance of the issuers who are issuing it. Third one is at any point, any data is being disclosed, user's consent is always in the loop. Next one, we wanted to bring issuers into the value chain. That's what motivates the ecosystem, in our opinion. If somebody goes to a university and that university diploma got verified by an enterprise for hiring with a purpose, we wanted to give that a piece of the action back to them. That way, the person who is verifying gets the accurate information from the source, not go to LinkedIn and see that I went to Harvard. I never went to Harvard. I can write it in LinkedIn. Christina is trying to hire me. I will tell her that I went to Harvard. She went in LinkedIn. You don't have that problem with this system. So we want to make sure, let's bring issuers into the ecosystem. You don't need to talk to LexisNexis or Equifax to find out if I went to a particular university. Check and ask me just, what's your digital address? I'll let you know. Then if I tell you this is the university I went to, when I give you the date, you actually go there and verify. Assertion directly comes from the source. That's the beauty of this. Last one, like I was mentioning, is include people who are not technologically savvy. It's primarily, there are 20% of the people who do not have a smartphone are technologically savvy. People who do not have a presentable digital identity. When we are trying to bring up a new ecosystem, let's take one step back and include everybody in the ecosystem. And you have new requirements now that I keep hearing, like a lot of refugees. When they come, they want to start a new life. Where do they start? They can bootstrap and give this system. How much time do I have? So we also assume that there is going to be different networks in different regions. If you really want to define a global digital identity framework, you also need to consider local regulations and local eccentricities. In India, for instance, they take iris, fingerprints, face, every one of those to create an identity, extremely strong. But once you cross India, it has no meaning. But these different types of local regulations, we have to let them actually decide how they bring people on board based on the local regulations. And what we want to do is, there are different directory services which brings the governance process into the picture. Actually, what we are trying to solve with identity is not a technological problem. It is the trust and governance, like Abbie was mentioning about trust. The next part was a governance process. If somebody says that they went to a particular university in, let's say, pick an example, Philippines. How do I know if that university exists or not? Can I trust that university? Second thing, when a university diploma is presented by a user, is he the rightful owner of the user? How do you make sure of that? It's not like I'm going to download my son's educational qualification and send it to somebody. We need to make sure there is a governance layer and a directory and registry service which brings these geographical different issuer service providers into the picture. And also, at each level, you have this regional directories which will make sure different networks working in a given region will actually talk to the same directory service when they are creating and bootstrapping the user. That's what will eliminate duplicate people, fraudulent people, synthetic identities. This is what gives the strongest identity framework that we require. So the flexibility ADI also provides is there can be different ecosystems that get not only globally, also within a given region. There can be different market-focused ecosystems can develop. You only have to go get a decentralized identity, digital identity, which in our stuff we call digital address. You need to get only once from one particular ecosystem. Once you get it, you can use it across the other ecosystems without any problem. You don't have to deal with multiple wallets. You don't have to worry about if I have 3 devices, do I have to repeat the process multiple times? If each time when I change the device, well, how is that going to work? We have addressed all those things. So with that, I'm going to call to action is, like I was mentioning, specification 2.0 work is just started. Please come and join us. We are very pleasant people to work with. Most of the times. And, we don't have not invented here kind of mentality. And we're not ashamed to be called as idiots. That's fine too. But before you call that, come and listen to us. See if there is merit to it. Our approach is common sense. We're not, one of the things that will help is if we are stupid, things have to be very, very simple. Otherwise, you won't understand. That's what helps define this particular ecosystem. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ramesh and Abbie. I have a couple of questions which I'm going to combine because they're along the similar lines, just coming in online. So what if ADI is compromised, and is there a liability model for breaches, bad data, etc., or is the system based on best effort?
The ADI directory services are blockchain-based. Both are blockchain. They are not owned by anybody. The players in the ADI ecosystem actually, get to host one of those, nodes each. It's all blockchain-based. With respect to service itself, we will actually promote the independence to them, how they want to do it, but they still have to go through the certification process through ADI to make sure they meet the principles. They also meet the security breaches or security review that we go through. Unless they go through and get the certification, they will not be able to participate in the ecosystem and stand up a service. Every time when a service is stood up, that is registered into the global directory service. That way, anybody else in anywhere, any other geo will know that there is new service that's come up. Second thing, I did not stress this enough during that conversation. The bottom line is we want to bring accountability at every layer of the ecosystem. By that, what I mean is a service can be set up and stood up only after ADI certification registration is done. And they have to adhere to ADI governance principles. When a service, whoever is the vendor, brings issuers and service providers into the ecosystem, they have to do the vetting process and then registration process they need to do to ADI ecosystem.
Yeah, so simply said, there is a governance system. If an issuer is compromised, there is a recovery process.
Yes.
Okay, so and we have escrow type systems. It's very well thought governance system. Actually, the governance system is on ADI association.org. We encourage everybody to read it because it's the most mature in the industry.
Yes.
Do we have any other?
No, that's it online. One real quick at the back of the room, and then we're out of time. So
Yeah.
The whole system seems to be tied to the mobile device. What happens to my identity if I lose my mobile device?
Very good question, Sylvan. We are the only system that use the cloud wallet, so you are not bound to your device. The onboarding for your device is the tight binding. Once you go to the DAS, after that you are back in the cloud. And if you lose that connection, we know how to recover it based on so many things. So we are not device-dependent wallet, and this is part of the problem of the original wallet implementation. Every user have to manage their wallets across devices. We got rid of that. This is part of the usability. So,
and there are recovery processes that are defined in the ecosystem where there is a alternate device bootstrapping. There is also a delegated recovery.
yes.
Or you could have the original email that you got from the trusted source who onboarded you.
And
all those things are available.
And we use a card. You can have your
and
own card.
you can also provide digital address on
No
the card.
phone is needed. We could do that.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Abbie and Ramesh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be back in a few minutes with our next presentation.